And I thought the phrase "this means more" was the other Merseyside Premier League club. Hi, my name is Mike. Welcome to my vlog about football in general and Burnley FC in particular. A vlog that this week picked up last year's third shirt in a Black Friday sale. I'm sorry, I was weak. Well, Burnley continue to be record breakers with another defeat at home in the Premier League, this time to West Ham. Everything was going so well for 86 minutes. The Clarets took a lead through a penalty from J-Rod, which he dispatched, and from that point onwards we kind of thought that it was going to be at least the first home victory of the season. The defending was excellent, the players were putting everything on the line. It didn't look like West Ham were going to do much, and then the killer blow really, a defensive mistake. Kudosu looked really good all the way through the game. There were four Clarets around him. He managed to beat them all across to the byline and cross across for Darren O'Shea to not be able to do a lot except deflect into his own net. Now, we kind of seen this goal a lot this season, and we've seen the winner a lot. Souček scoring in the last minute with a cross coming in from the right hand side all the way to the far post, and he's pretty much unmarked. J-Rod, who had been brilliant, he'd kind of done the Ashley Barnes leadership role, I felt, for the game. You know, just absolutely putting everything on the line. And when that ball went in the back of the net, you just see him go to the ground and go, oh, Jesus, that was me. That one was on me, or partly on me, as it were. But again, we've seen that a lot. I would love to see the number of goals, the stats on the number of goals that we've conceded this year from low crosses, generally from the right, from around about the edge of the 6-yard box, going straight across and getting either bundled in or deflected in, and goals scored at the far post. We have generally our right far post. Generally, it feels like 2/3 have been scored that way, and it shows a few issues. It shows a few problems. Problems I'm not sure can be fixed. I mean, it's defensive structure and all that kind of stuff, but you know, our right-hand side is particularly weak defensively. We've got Vitinho and we've got Connor Roberts. Now, Connor Roberts, he looked great last year. He looked fantastic, but ever since he's been in the Premier League, even under Dyche, he kind of looked like a kid who's had too much sunny delight. He's basically running around like he's hyped up on having a sugar rush. He's always felt like two yellow cards in waiting, one of which for dissent and one of which for a dumb foul or a stupid handball or something like that. I've never been convinced, and I'm not being convinced of Connor Roberts, but we've also the alternative is Vitinho. And Vitinho, I think, is doing his best out there, but I don't think he's good enough. But on the other hand, you know, the company and Pace are talking about, you know, this has come too soon. Vitinho is one of these players for whom it has come too soon, or playing in a position for whom it has to come too soon. It's very easy to forget that when we bought Vitinho, he was playing in Belgium in a team that finished 10th in the Belgian league. He didn't really kind of have a set position last year in the Championship, and now he's up against Premier League players, and good Premier League players at that. Wingers in the Premier League are of a very good standard at the moment, and he's up against that. And he's doing his best. I don't think he's doing anything wrong, but you know, it's just one of those things. It's part of a unit that is not functioning well. So yeah, we basically, you know, concede the goals, and West Ham go home singing about, you know, pleasuring Michael Jackson's Monkey. One for the kids there, always a one. Oh yeah, the other thing as well is substitutions. You know, people criticising company substitutions. I did think substitutions caused the problems, but again, on paper, those substitutions were probably the right one. A left winger for a left winger, a right winger for a defensive midfielder. You're defending a 1-0 lead at home. You want to leave an option for attack, because Rory is still that. He's probably a little bit better in the centre than Koleosho is. And then you take off Gudmundsson and you bring on Cullen, who's defensive midfielder. The problem is it just completely threw that midfield out, and maybe Jack Court would have been a better option. Can't even remember if he was on the bench. But yeah, I mean, you say, bring off a right winger for a defensive midfielder when you're defending, you get a 1-goal lead with 4 minutes to go. Yeah, you'd do that every single time. Well, Company did that, and look where it ended up. So, anyway, bottom of the league. Still bottom of the league, even after Everton get a 10-point penalty, which sums up our season in a nutshell. Now, I talked about Everton and FFP in a previous video, and I'm going to put the link to that video in the description below if you want to watch that. And I basically called it. I knew exactly what the Premier League were going to do. I said at the time that the Premier League is going to give them a punishment that doesn't matter. And that is exactly what they did. They gave Everton a 10-point penalty, applied immediately, which dropped them to 19th. And people go, oh, that's too harsh, that's a high penalty. Yeah, well, it drops them to 2 points from safety with 25 games left in the season. Yeah, that's not a penalty that really matters, is it? But the weird thing is, even if you think the penalty is harsh or not harsh enough or about right, there has been a concerted media campaign to try and get them off. Now, you can say that the Premier League have put this penalty in because they're worried about an independent regulator, and I think you'd be justified in saying that. But the media seem to think that this is too harsh a punishment. 10 points for breaking the profit and sustainability rules, financial irregularities, basically, breaking a salary cap, whatever you want to call it. Everton broke the rules, and they admitted to breaking the rules. But no one denied that Everton was guilty. They're just kind of denying that the punishment is correct, which is a bit of a weird one, really. It's an interesting argument. It's kind of like a lawyer standing up in court and saying, although my client is guilty of murder, Your Honour, we feel that a life sentence is far too harsh, as my client only killed him a little bit. Now, some people are arguing that 10 points for a financial infringement is harsh compared to a 9-point penalty for going into administration. And you may have a point, but not in the way that you think it should be. I think having a 9-point penalty for going into administration is far, far too lenient. Perhaps you shouldn't even get a points deduction. With the amount of money being swishing around the Premier League at the moment, you probably shouldn't get a points deduction for putting a Premier League club into administration. You should get a frickin' Lifetime Achievement Award. And another argument has been, oh, it's harsh on the Everton fans. Well, so what? I don't, they are innocent bystanders, I completely agree, but that shouldn't be taken into consideration when you're determining whether a football club has broken the rules. The Everton fans don't deserve this. Well, no, they don't, but that kind of means that Everton fans count for more than Leicester's fans, or Leeds fans, or Norwich fans, or Burnley fans. And I thought the phrase, this means more, was the other Merseyside Premier League club. There have been comparisons with Manchester City and whether they're going to actually, punish Manchester City harshly if they're found guilty of the 115 financial irregularity charges against them. I think it's a completely wrong argument again. Manchester City are accused of financial irregularities which are basically deliberate and systematic. Everton's punishment is for financial irregularities that basically come from bad luck and incompetence. They're two different things, and trying to apply Everton's punishment and process to Manchester City is completely different, not least because Manchester City will afford lawyers up the wazoo and will appeal to everything they possibly can. We will probably end up in a situation where the judgment is coming down on crimes, that's an interesting word, charges, which apply to breaking of the rules 15 years earlier, and then they will go and spend lots more money on lawyers saying that this should be all timed out and all that kind of stuff. So it's a completely different situation. And I had to laugh at the Everton fans calling the Premier League corrupt. The Premier League is not corrupt. That's the in vogue phrase at the moment. The Premier League is corrupt. No, it isn't. The Premier League is spectacularly incompetent. That's the thing. But the Premier League has not been corrupt when it comes to Everton. The Premier League has been incredibly supportive of Everton under the counter. First off, we had the Richarlison suspension, which the Premier League did not enact, even though it was clear night and day what he did. He threw a flare into the crowd. That was a suspension. That's a 3-match ban. Everybody saw it. It was live on TV. And they didn't suspend him until after the end of the season when he scored a couple of goals to help Everton stay up. Second, the Premier League admitted when they put the punishment down The Premier League admitted that they had been advising Everton on incoming and outgoing transfers in order to stay under the profit and sustainability rules. And they had reserved the right to say to the Everton that if they wanted to bring in a player, then the Premier League were going to say no. That was a very soft transfer embargo. It placed on Everton for the best part of 18 months. But they didn't tell anyone that that was the case, did they? Everton kept quiet about it. The Premier League kept quiet about it. I found that really quite interesting. And then, of course, when the Premier League is accused of being corrupt by Everton fans, well, it could have been worse. Not only have had the Richarlison thing, the soft transfer embargo, I mean, they could have investigated the funding of the Everton owner, a man who is absolutely, definitely, independently wealthy and not a front for a Russian oligarch who also owned another Premier League club against the rules. And it's only coincidence that Everton's financial troubles magnified and got really bad when Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine and the UK put sanctions on Russian oligarchs. It was just a coincidence. The Premier League has done a hell of a lot of looking the other way because that is what it does. Now, the other thing to come out of the Premier League recently was the vote on disallowing related party transfers. This is basically where a business who owns two or more teams in separate countries transferring or loaning players between them. The model Watford have used for years. Man City own about 10 clubs. Lots and lots of clubs doing it. The scare story being used was that Newcastle will take advantage of this because Wolves sold Ruben Neves to a Saudi team, and Newcastle, who are absolutely definitely not, according to the Premier League, owned by Saudi Arabia, could potentially loan him back on the cheap. Now, this was the scare story. I'm never going to cut the owners of Newcastle much slack because they do a lot of cutting themselves. But that circumvention always felt like it was raised by other clubs rather than Newcastle. That was just the scare story. But anyway, it was voted down as well, and some people were surprised to see that Burnley were on the against side voting it down. But anyone who have been paying attention will know that ALK, who are the owners of Burnley, have been exploring purchasing other clubs in other countries, specifically Belgium and Scotland. So naturally, ALK voted in their own self-interest over the wider interest and implication for the Premier League. And who says ALK have not got the hang of how the Premier League works? By the way, if you're wondering about those European clubs that ALK have been linked with, they are in Belgium and Scotland, and I'm going to apologise for my pronunciation here. But the Belgian and Scottish clubs in question are Kortrijk and Dunaday United. Okay, I know it's Dundee, but come on, that's a really clever joke. Well, maybe not clever, stupid, but I liked it. My vlog. So now we move on to Saturday. Sheffield United at home, a club in financial trouble itself. It appears to be owned by the only Saudi prince who doesn't appear to have much money. And they've been also downright awful all season and still ahead of us in the table. So there you go. They come to the turf. It is a must-win game for both sides. 6-pointer is in half of it. And they play the exact style that is our Achilles heel, which, oh my God, this is going to be a fun one, isn't it? We never really saw what the two sides could do last year at the turf because Sheffield United got their goalie sent off in the first 20 minutes and then it was basically a procession. I do have confidence. I do think the team can actually, finally get that result at home. Sheffield United are a bit of a shambles at the moment, but they are bound to come. I'm worried about it being a Norwich game. By that I mean the last time Norwich came in the Premier League where they were time wasting for the 5th minute. Where they basically didn't want us to cross the halfway line and they just wanted to get it over with, stick 11 men on the goal line and basically come for the point. And Burnley at that time couldn't score at all, a bit like now. Couldn't break them down. It was one of the dullest 0-0 draws that we've seen in recent years. I worry that Sheffield United are going to do that. I worry that Burnley can't do anything about it. But hopefully we can get that home win and get that monkey off our back, that record of the most consecutive Premier League defeats at home to start a season off our back. And I'm going to leave you with a stat. This is a hell of a stat. In June 2020, the Premier League restarted after the COVID break. It was the one where they paused the season for about 3 months and then they restarted behind closed doors. That was in June 2020. Since then, Burnley have played 51 home games in the Premier League. Now, that does not include the Championship last season. So, June 2020, 51 home Premier League games. Burnley have won 10 of them. 10 out of 51 since June 2020. And only 5 of those games were in front of supporters. So if you think it's a long time since you've seen Burnley win a Premier League home game, you are absolutely correct. And because I can't go to every home game, I have seen since June 2020, so in the past 3.5 years, I have seen 2 home Premier League wins. You know what? I'm beginning to think the problem's me. If you've got any comments about this video, please feel free to leave them down below and I will respond where I can. If you liked it, click the like button. And if you like what I do, have a look around the rest of the channel and click subscribe to be notified when I produce new content.